What if I told you that eating more food could actually help you lose fat, have more energy, and finally break away from that cycle of starving yourself, losing weight, gaining the weight back? So today, we are diving into something that seems completely counterintuitive to most women. And this is why they don't ever do it. And this is partly why they don't ever find a point of sustainability in their health journey. But we're going to talk about how eating more can actually optimize your metabolism and get you better long term results. Welcome to the Fitness Simplified podcast. I'm Brooke Davis, women's functional nutritionist and fitness specialist with Elysian Women's Wellness, and I'm here to simplify your fitness. For so many women for so long, dieting and eating less has been kind of the default answer to weight loss. We have actually been conditioned to believe that eating less, working out more is actually the only way to see progress. And if this sounds familiar, you have likely spent years going from one low calorie diet to the next, either cutting carbs, fasting, following super strict meal plans, only to find yourself really not seeing the progress that you want, feeling really stuck, probably tired, and likely really frustrated with your results and your body, thinking, what's wrong with me? You are not alone. And I want to break this down in this episode because chronically under eating can actually slow your metabolism, which makes it harder in the long run to lose fat. And over time, this leads to a whole host of issues, from hormonal issues to detoxification, sluggish detoxification, your nervous system breakdown, right, which leads to low energy, brain fog, just overall kind of sluggishness. Again, your disrupted hormones, your irregular cycles. If you are in your or above, worsening perimenopause symptoms, struggling, stalled weight loss, even if you're eating healthy, even if you're working out. Okay, it can give you increased cravings, binge, restrict cycles, emotional eating, really just going to food as that source of comfort, gut issues, poor digestion. The list is long, and this is something that really isn't being addressed in the just kind of conventional fitness space. And the truth is that your metabolism is really adaptable. The human body is so fascinating. And if you are consistently eating too little, your body learns to survive on less, downshifting essential functions to conserve energy. And this is why so many women hit these frustrating plateaus on super low calories, even when they feel like they're doing everything right. I see it comment after comment in these Facebook groups, low calorie dieting groups. They're like, I'm only eating X, why can't I lose weight? I say, well, it's about time to listen to this podcast. And this is where reverse dieting comes in. This is the first phase of our metabolic optimization method, the reignite phase. And instead of continuing to just cut calories and overtrain, reverse dieting is an actually strategic approach that reignites, restores your metabolism, supports your hormone health, improves your digestion, and helps you fuel your body properly so that you can finally see real sustainable results. So we're going to break it all down, including why your metabolism slows when you undereat, how increasing your food in the right way can actually help you burn more fat, and then the step-by-step process of reverse dieting to reignite your metabolism and feel amazing in your body again. Starting with metabolic adaptation. This is the body's kind of built-in survival mechanism. When your calorie intake is consistently super low, like I mentioned before, the body actually adjusts its energy expenditure to match it, essentially slowing your metabolism down to conserve fuel. If you're not giving it enough fuel, your body essentially thinks, well, we don't have access to that much fuel. We're going to conserve it because we don't know when the next time we're going to have access to it is. Okay. And this is why constantly being on a diet can lead to stalled progress, even when you're eating less and exercising more. As your body adapts, you can only eat less for so long before you are depleting your body of nutrients. And that is what really matters long term, right? Research shows that prolonged calorie restriction leads to a decrease in your resting metabolic rate, as well as reductions in your non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or your NEAT, and your exercise energy expenditure. So this means that your body is actually burning fewer calories at rest and during movement, making fat loss harder. Some key signs of metabolic adaptation are things like consistent fatigue, even after getting enough sleep, brain fog, low energy levels overall, digestive issues like bloating, constipation, slow motility, like you're not digesting your food very well, you feel full a lot, hormonal imbalances, things like irregular cycles. If you are, again, in perimenopause, worsened symptoms, so brain fog, the digestion, bloating, it's all kind of part and parcel. And then increased hunger and cravings, especially for carbs and sugar. Plateaued weight loss, like I mentioned, even despite consistent dieting and exercise. So why does this happen? When your food intake drops, again, the body actually responds in a few ways in order to preserve that energy. So number one is hormonal shifts. Your cortisol increases. Chronically under eating, reduced calorie intake is actually a stressor. And this is why so many other variables have to be controlled for when you're trying to lose fat. This is not just a calorie. This is not just a calories in, calories out math equation. Okay. And then, so cortisol comes in. This can increase fat storage, especially around the belly. Then we have thyroid. So this is that metabolic kind of thermometer. Your thyroid function decreases, specifically T3. This is the active thyroid hormone, and this is responsible for the gas pedal on your thyroid. This will drop when your calories are too low. This is slowing your energy production. That goes back to that NEAT, that energy expenditure, thermogenesis. Okay. And then we have leptin and ghrelin. So these are your hunger and satiety signals. So leptin is the hormone that tells you you're full. And this will decrease with prolonged dieting. That means that you are going to feel more hungry and you're burning less calories on a daily basis, on a regular basis. Okay. In addition to that, your ghrelin increases. So ghrelin is your hunger hormone, and this actually increases in a response to reduced calories, making you feel hungrier and more prone to overeating. So you have all of these things completely working against you when you cut your calories too low. Okay. And then, as I said before, you have reduced thermogenesis, which is the decrease in calorie burn from movement, from intentional movement. And then your body actually unconsciously, you subconsciously reduce what's called spontaneous movement. So things like fidgeting, pacing back and forth, toe tapping, right? Posture changes, my hands moving, all of these kinds of things actually burn microcalories on a regular basis. And you will stop doing these things when your calorie intake reduces in order to conserve energy. The other component of this is lowered body temperature. So reduced thermogenesis, right? Reduced energy means your body produces less heat. This can make you feel cold more often. This can also go back to thyroid issues, which ties into low calories. If you're under eating, if you're having thyroid issues, right? It's all this vicious cycle. And then of course we have muscle mass, which we cannot forget about. When your calorie intake is reduced, when it's too low, the body will break down muscle for energy. That is if you don't have, glucose, something easily to break down, if you don't have enough fuel coming into the body that can easily be broken down, your muscles, your connective tissue are the next fastest thing for your body to get to. Okay. That means you're going to lose muscle. You're going to decrease your joint capacity and the health of your joints. And since muscle is metabolically active, losing it actually further decreases your resting metabolic rate. So the bottom line is that metabolic adaptation is your body doing exactly what it was designed to do in order to help you survive in a calorie deprived state. Okay. And that is to conserve energy for survival. It cannot prioritize fat loss in this state. Okay. And while this response is really beneficial in times when, you don't have access to food, when you are starving, it unfortunately works against long-term fat loss and your overall health. The good news is that reverse dieting can help you restore your metabolic function, support your hormone production, increase your energy levels, support your thyroid, balance out your hunger and fullness signals so that you can eat more, feel better, and finally break through those fat loss plateaus and break that cycle of losing and gaining the same 20, 30 pounds. So let's get into that. So reverse dieting is not just shoving a ton more food down your throat. It's not going ham on whatever you want. This is a actually structured approach to gradually increasing your calorie intake after you've been dieting and cutting calories for a long period of time. Okay. And the ultimate goal is to restore your metabolic function, improve your hormone production, and prevent excess fat gain while you allow the body to thrive on more food, while you nourish it, while you give it the nutrients, vitamins, minerals that it needs in order to optimize function. So many women are afraid of eating more because they associate it with weight gain. But the reality is that under eating can be just as damaging as overeating, okay, leading to that stalled weight loss, hormone imbalances, and low energy, of course. But reverse dieting actually helps the body readapt to a higher intake when it's done right, which improves your metabolic rate, your how many calories you're burning at rest, your overall production, your hormone or your overall health, your hormone production, your immune system, your digestion, your detoxification system, your energy production, and even your nervous system health. Okay. So those are going to be some of the main benefits that come along with it. So how do you know if you actually need a reverse diet? If you have spent months or years eating in a low calorie diet cycle, whether this is intentional or not, most women are under eating because whether they're just busy, whether they're not used to eating this much food, whether they have followed meal plans that have told them they can only eat this amount of food, there's a variety of reasons that women get stuck in this cycle. But if you are eating anywhere between 1,200 and 1,500 calories or less a day, your metabolism has likely adapted to survive, not thrive, on that intake. And again, we show that prolonged calorie restriction actually reduces thyroid function, leptin levels, right? Making sustained fat loss nearly impossible. And then number two, if you are someone who is training really hard, okay, you're eating less, but you're not seeing results. Not alone. So many women are falling into this trap of just continuously cutting more, training harder, doing more cardio, only to be completely burnt out. They're exhausted. They're not losing fat. Okay. And that has to do with their hormones. So when your cortisol increases, again, that your body hangs on to fat, especially around the belly, which is where most women are complaining about their fat storage. And that is also the most metabolically damaging. That is visceral fat that impacts all of your organs. Okay. And then if you are struggling with low energy, poor sleep, hair loss, digestive issues, that plateau, again, bloating, irregular bowel movements, these are all signs that your metabolism has downregulated. Where we want to go with this is a gradual increase in calories and nutrients more specifically. Okay, again, you can't just go binge eat, stuff your face with pizza and expect this to work. Okay, but a gradual increase in nutrients actually and calories actually encourages your body and your metabolism to upregulate these metabolic processes rather than store excess food as fat. Okay, especially if you come out of a dieting phase and you just go ham, your body is primed to store fat because it hasn't had a consistent intake of nutrients and fuel. And so you are going to store most of that as fat if you go straight out of a diet into eating whatever you want, which is what most women do. Okay. And when you strategically, again, gradually increase, and strategically is really the keyword, which is what we'll get into here in a second, then you're going to see a decrease in hunger. You're going to see an increase in energy. You're going to see an improvement in thyroid function. Again, that feeling cold, your basal body temperature will increase. You're going to build muscle better, and more calories means you're going to be able to preserve that muscle better. And if you do this right, then you're going to actually retrain your body to be able to handle more food, handle more nutrients, which gives you the fuel to optimize your hormone production without excessive weight gain. So let's get into that. Like I mentioned before, this isn't just, you can't just jump into a high calorie intake. So many women will do, these calculators and like, okay, well, I was supposed to eat, X amount. Should be somewhere around 18 to like 2,200 calories for most women. But if you just dive straight into eating that many calories, you are going to gain fat, especially if you don't hit the right macros, if you don't have the right nutrients, you're not doing it in the right way. So this is a slow, strategic process that allows your body to adapt and utilize the nutrients and the fuel without excessive fat gain. So let's dive into the exact steps. This is important. Take notes. Let's do this. So step number one, and this is again, one of the main steps that most women never do until they start working with us. This is key number one in the reignite phase. So before increasing calories, you have to establish a baseline intake. You have to track your food for at least a week. Okay. This is going to help us determine what your current calorie intake is, which many people are underestimating. Even registered dietitians underestimated their intake by about 20%. So unless you are weighing your food, being very meticulous about it, you are likely underestimating. And then we want to see a macronutrient balance because, calories are great, but macros are going to determine where that fuel is put, right? If you're eating mainly carbs and fats, yes, we need those. But if you're undereating protein, you're overeating carbs and fats, your body is going to store that, especially if you're not utilizing it with the right exercise. Okay. And then this is also going to give us a profile of nutrient intake. Okay. If you are getting low intake of fiber, essential fatty acids, vitamins, minerals, then these are all the building blocks, right? These are the spark plugs. These are the foundational things that you need to support all of these systems in your body and to optimize function. Okay. So this can be done pretty simply, especially now. Okay. You can either do a food tracking app. Chronometer is a low cost one. MyFitnessPal is the free version is fine. Record it all. Okay. You could even estimate portion size if you're not willing to weigh. I will say the more meticulous you can be, obviously the more accurate it's going to be, the better information you have. But do your best with portion sizes. Of course, track your drinks, like literally everything. Okay. And if that feels like too much, write it down in your notes app. Again, you can estimate like half cup of chicken, tablespoon of dressing, whatever. And then plug it into ChatGPT and ask him to tell you what your calorie and macronutrient breakdown is. I will say I've done this a few times and most of it comes up pretty accurate, but I've had him throw me some curveballs where it's like, ooh, that was actually not correct. Let's rework this. And then it comes back with something better. So I will say you need to proceed with caution on that, but be as meticulous as you care your results to be, or as successful as you want your results to be. Then number two is to slowly start to increase your calories, okay? And make sure you have kind of an average baseline of like your day-to-day life. Most people, they'll track like their best days and it'll be like, okay, you're eating really low calorie. And then they'll track their weekends and it'll be like double what they eat on the weekday. So take an average of that and then you need to be more consistent. You cannot keep doing this weekday. Your body doesn't know what to do with it. It just causes more stress hormones. Okay, and then we want to start slowly increasing your calories to your maintenance. So we have a great maintenance calculator. We also offer a personalized plan. If you need more support with that, I'll link it down below in getting where you should actually be for your intake. So using a high quality macro calculator, which I'll link down below, and getting a baseline based on your activity, your lifestyle, that kind of thing, and seeing where your intake actually should be to maintain. Most women see that number and are like, I could never eat that much. I will blow up like a balloon. But I promise you that if you do it right, it is possible. Okay. Then you want to slowly increase your calories to this period, okay, up to this maintenance period, potentially above, depending on your activity level and your ultimate goals. Okay. In order to allow your body to adapt, we slowly increase because this is not going to trigger excessive fat storage if you follow the rest of this process. Okay. Generally speaking, we want to add 50 to 150 calories per week, depending on your comfort level, how meticulous you're being. 50 calories is kind of like margin of error, but 100 to 150 calories a week can be a really great starting point. And then the most important thing, again, we're working on nutrients. So you want to make sure that you are prioritizing whole foods. And the 90-10, 80-20 rule at the very least, okay, 80% to 90% whole unprocessed foods, 10 to 20% can be kind of whatever. Quality fats, things like avocados, nuts, seeds, etc., and then complex carbohydrates. And then we want to look at macronutrients. So you should be following a fairly, again, if you use our macro calculator, it'll do it for you, but we're looking at like a 30 to 40% protein, 30 to 40% carbohydrates, 30 to 40% fats, right? In those ranges. And if we're following like keto or something, right, then you'll need to bump up and you're going to allocate your calories in those ratios as you increase over the weeks. But if you were following like a keto diet or something like that, then you're obviously going to be a little less heavy on the fats, start increasing carbs, start taking down fats. And then you have to start paying close attention to your biofeedback. So things like your energy levels. Do you feel more alert in the afternoons, right? Are you waking up easier? Are you waking up with more energy in the mornings? Are you not needing that extra cup of coffee in the afternoons? Are you avoiding that afternoon crash? Your mood, your stress response. Do you have less anxiety? Are you feeling more resilient to whatever comes your way? And then your digestion. Are you actually able to digest and move through the food that you're eating? Do you have less bloating? Are you having more regular bowel movements? Okay. You should be having them at least once daily. And then your sleep. Are you getting deeper, more restful sleep? Okay. And that'll also sometimes, show in the energy levels. So as you're doing that, right, as you're slowly increasing, it might take you quite a few weeks to do this, right? Our phase one for most people is like 3 months almost at a minimum every time. Not only are you building these foundational habits, but it takes time for your body to adapt to this. Okay. So throughout this, of course, we have to prioritize the macronutrient ratios. And then we're increasing calories, right, with a focus on muscle building and muscle retention. Okay. So in order to prioritize that, we want to make sure that we're getting 0.8 to 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. That will buff itself out in the percentages if you are actually working up to a true maintenance, if you used a quality calculator, like I have linked below. And so this is all going to support your thyroid function, support your hormone regulation, okay? And then we have to be strength training in some capacity. I cannot stress this enough. You at least 2 to 3 times a week. 4 would be great. Adding some cardio in there. If you can get 1 day a week of something high intensity, another day a week making sure you're hitting your steps, or most of the days a week hitting your steps, and then one other day of something more moderate and longer work time of cardio, okay? Because this is going to allow your body to use this extra fuel for muscle rather than storing it for fat. It's going to increase your metabolic rate and your at rest and out and during exercise calorie output. Okay. This is the ultimate hack to long-term fat loss, and that is muscle building. Okay. Then we also have to make sure that we're supporting all of these additional symptoms. Okay. So your hormone production, again, your digestion, this is huge. This can be an issue when women start increasing their food. They're like, oh, I feel really bloated, right? And because of years of stress, like chronic dieting cycle, their gut is an absolute disaster. And so we not only need to make sure that we are supporting your nervous system, okay, we are using breath work, stress management, down regulation as you go through this breath work, right? That's another, so important. But we are also prioritizing gut health, okay, making sure that you are eating prebiotic, fiber-rich foods, fermented foods, using digestive enzymes potentially, apple cider vinegar, you are hydrating. All of the foundational things have to go along with this. And this is why it usually takes a minimum of about 3 months to, again, establish all of these things and end up in and finalize the process. Okay? And then we have to monitor and adjust all this. So as you're paying attention to your biofeedback, you are getting all of these foundational habits in, which I have a podcast in the beginning of it, kind of a newer, one of my first podcasts was on some of these foundational habits if you need something to go back on and start with. And like I said, this lasts usually, 2 months at the absolute minimum. That usually is not enough, but up to 16 weeks, 6 months, sometimes, depending on where you're starting from and how your body responds, how adherent you are to the plan, how consistent you are, etc. Okay, but some signs that your metabolism is improving. The changes you're making are doing what they're designed to do, even if it's not on the scale. Say a lot of times, I will say, women who are truly chronically under eating, they actually see fat loss initially, right? Their clothes will be fitting better. Their body composition will change. Other times they gain weight, and usually 5 to 8 pounds, usually max, like 10 probably max. But sometimes that's a necessary adaptation for you to then ultimately lose that weight and keep it off. And 10 pounds is usually nothing compared to what women have gained and lost in the past. So, but some ultimate signs that you want to be seeing, again, in your biofeedback specifically, but is that your energy is increasing, right? Maybe your libido comes back, your moods are better, you're not having to reach for that second cup of coffee, okay? Better sleep, better digestion, all of those things. Again, some of those areas might need a little more support as we increase food, but those are some things that you should start to feel. And then, of course, building strength, having more endurance. You should see see progress in your training. And that really needs to be the priority during this phase versus what the number on the scale says. And then ultimately, right, the goal is fat loss. And so when your metabolic markers are improved, you're consistently fueling, you have those foundational habits in place, you are consistently hitting a solid target that you have something to then take from, then you can start a fat loss phase, right? A 2016 study showed that restoring calories before dieting again actually results in greater fat loss retention and metabolic flexibility, which means actually sustainable, better long-term results. So to tie this all up, reverse dieting isn't necessarily just about eating more, okay? It's about giving your body the fuel and the nutrients that it needs to function optimally. Again, your hormones, your immune system, your digestion, your detoxification, your energy production, and your nervous system. So by following a strategic approach, you can actually restore your metabolic health. You can improve your energy. You can restore your hormone production, and you can set the stage for long-term fat loss success. Like I said, this is phase 1 of our metabolic optimization method. And this is something that most women skip. Okay. So if you have been stuck in the cycle of low calorie diets, you're not seeing the progress that you want, you're not seeing the changes in your body that you want, despite how hard you feel like you're working, this is likely the missing piece that is going to tie it all together for you and get your metabolism back on track. Your metabolism is highly adaptable. Chronic undereating will slow that down. Okay. But with a strategic plan, you can actually become more efficient at burning fat, maintaining your energy levels, and keeping it off forever. So if today's episode resonated with you and you're wondering how to play this in your own journey, especially if you're struggling with perimenopause, this is so key. I've created a free guide called Reignite Your Metabolism Starter Kit, and it is the very first steps that you need to start actually applying this process and getting your metabolism up to speed, supporting those processes, and getting you to a point where you can lose fat sustainably forever. I will link it in the show notes. I hope this was enjoyable. Thanks for being here. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of the Fitness Simplified podcast. We are stoked to have you join us on your journey to better health and fitness. If you have any questions, suggestions for future topics, or just want to chat, feel free to reach out to us on Instagram at Brooke_Elysian and Facebook linked in the show notes, or via our website, ElysianWomen'sWellness.com. If you enjoyed what you heard today, we would be thrilled if you could take a half second to leave us a 5-star rating and review. Not only will you be helping others find our show, but you'll also be entered into our monthly $100 giveaway for new reviews. If there was something you heard that was helpful or impactful, please screenshot it, tag me, and share what it was so that we can bring you more. Plus, you'll be entered into our monthly Legion Recharge post-workout giveaway. So make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more. Thanks for listening.